Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. Hope all of you are able to hear me and hope all of you can see my screen. Can I have a quick confirmation, guys? All right. Now, let me start with the remaining portion of your demographics domain. So, if you remember last class when we started with this particular one, we started with the basic structure. The structure is going to be a demographic domain is the one which is going to have only one record per subject. The identifier variables are nothing but study ID, domain, and subject ID. I'm just giving a brief overview of what we are done so far. Then I have given three assignments to you. The first assignment is on providing the patient ID and gender. I'm expecting everyone to create unique subject identifier along with the other details as per compliance with the CDISC. Then INVID stands for your investigator ID. INV name stands for your investigator name. RF ICDCTC, which is nothing but your RF ICDTC is nothing but the time, the reference informed consent date and time in character format. I can simply say that it is the time when the subject has signed the informed consent form. So based on the informed consent form, I have given one assignment to you. And then RF SDTTC, which is nothing but this is subject reference start date and time. That is nothing but when was the first treatment, the treatment start and time in character format. Correct? So end date is nothing but it can be either you can call it as a subject reference end date, or it can be also call it as your study completed date, right? So there is a small class here. Let's say if both study date as well as study end date as treatment end date available, the priority should be given to the study end date. And also we have given one more clause here. The clause is going to be both study reference study start date, reference study end date will be null for unassigned subjects. Unassigned subjects are nothing but either they are drop out after the screening or they got failed during the screening. So based on this, I have given one more assignment here. Then RFX STDTC. This is nothing but date and time of first study treatment. The meaning here is, right, we are intended to go with the study drug, but patient has some issues. So to overcome those issues, first, before even giving the regular study drug, we are going to give some other treatment to him. I have given the example here. The example is going to be, let's say, the drug that we would like to give is the fever drug, but the patient is facing issues with the patient having some vomiting sensation. So the first drug that we are giving here is nothing but we are giving the drug to control the vomiting. Right. So this is nothing but your supporting drug, or it is going to be a supporting treatment. So here the RFX STDTC is nothing but here when the support treatment started. RF STDTC is nothing but this is the time where your regular treatment got started. When you go with the multi-center study or multinational study, in that particular case, we are going to have site 1 and site 2. So if the same subject is participating in multiple phases of the clinical trial and he is part of the site 1 and site 2, whatever the subject had, the treatment that he or she had in the site 1 is going to become your RFX STDTC. The other one is going to be RFSTDTC. Correct? For this also, let's say that we have given one simple example here, and then we went with RFPENDTC, which is nothing but reference end participation date. It can be like it can be considered as a study completion date, or it can be a follow-up date, or it can be a death date, or it can be a discontinued date. What is the meaning of this? Can I say that if for some reason the subject has discontinued, right? He or she is not interested to continue with the clinical trials. Then it is going to be the reference end participation date is going to be a discontinued date. For some reason, patient is expired, is no more. Then the death date is going to be the end participation date. Let's say that there is no follow-up date yet. Follow-up is not done yet. only all the phases of your clinical trials is completed. So then it is going to be called as a study completion date. Let's say even after the study completion date, we made one follow-up to check all his vitals are okay or not. Then the follow-up date is going to be the end participation date, right? Then DTH DTC, which is nothing but the death date. For some reason, if the subject is expired, then it is going to be the death date and time in the character format. So here we need to understand, if it is a demographic domain, the DS term is equal to death means then DSS DTC, this is going to be a death date. If it is an adverse events domain, if AE out is equal to death, then AE and TC is going to be a date. Right? Based on the domain, we are going to identify this. Then death flag. Death flag is going to say that if the patient is expired, if it is yes, else it is going to be no. For this, I have given one assignment to you. Then birth date and time. So what is going to be the subject date of birth? Age, subject age. Generally, if I want to calculate this particular one, it will be calculated informed consent date, that is reference informed consent date minus birth date divided by 365.25. So why we want to do this particular one? A trial can continue over a span of time. That can be 1 year, 2 year, or it can be any time, correct? So irrespective of that particular one, whenever the first time whenever he or she signed the informed consent form, that date minus his birth date, which is nothing but we have collected this information, right? These are going to be the record variable. So these two divided by 365.25. Age units always in the years. Country, which represents the country code, always it is going to be 3 characters long. Race, black, white, Asian, and other. If you go with the other, it is going to be this information we are also supplying to the supplementary domain. Right? Ethnicity of the respective country, like Latin American, Indian, American, like that. Right? So I told you in the last week, these are going to be the pending topics that we would like to cover in the demographics domain. What are them? We need to talk about what is called DMDTC, DMDY, arm code, actual arm code. So if we complete these 6 variables, then we can say that we are good with the demographics domain. Right? So before I start with the today's session, if any of you have any questions, kindly let me know. If not, we will proceed with the today's class. Any questions from anyone? I could see there is a good improvement in the assignments. I have been getting some of the mails from some of you so far, but still the number is less. The number is going to be very less. I can say that it is going to be only 20% or 25% so far. So I'm requesting every one of you, please complete it. I'll wait for one more day. If I haven't get any of the responses, or if I haven't get complete thing, then I will start explaining those assignments in the class itself. Questions? All right, so I will be under assumption that all of you are good with this particular one. So I'm continuing with my next topic, that is next variable, which is nothing but DMDTC. So the DMDTC is nothing but it is date and time of collection. So what do you mean by collection? So we are going to collect the information from the patient, right? From the subject, right? Or it is called it as a demographic date of collection. Now, when we will get this information, anyone? When we are going to get this demographic data of collection, or when we are going to get this collection details from the patient? Can I say this will happen, or the collection will happen? Anyone? During the screening. Such enrollment, which is nothing but the screening, correct? So why enrollment happening? The enrollment is happening is for the screening purpose, correct? So at the time of screening, right, whatever the demographics that we are going to calculate, those are going to be the date is going to be my DMDTC, correct? Again, so what is the other thing that you need to understand here? The screening visit date, whatever the screening visit date, when the subject is actually visiting for the screening visit date can be considered as the collection date or as the DMDTC. Am I correct? Whatever the screening visit date, the same screening visit date can be considered as the DMDTC. Every one of you, is that correct? So if you want to go with one simple example here, the example is going to be, let's say I'm going to have the same patient details we can take here. Let's say take this particular guy. So there is a patient ID, the gender is equal to M. Yeah, there's a question. Anyone? Okay. So now let's say that this particular guy has let's say the visit, the kind of visit, and here we are also going to have the start date. So now I can say that this particular patient has visited, let me check the date. So to see today is 18, let's say somewhere on 14th April, that is nothing but 2022 0414. Can I say this is going to be a start date? But what is the purpose of visit? Screening. This is the time he came for the screening. So the start date is nothing but 2022-0414. Now this can be considered as a DMDTC. So now in this example, DMDTC is equal to, I can simply consider as when he came for the visit. That visit date itself is nothing but the first time he came for the screening. So the screening date itself, I can call it as my DMDTC. And remember, here you need to understand one thing. It is not mandatory that DMDTC may or may not be same as, you have something here, right? What is that? RFICDTC. What is this RFICDTC? This is nothing but informed consent date, reference informed consent date, correct? So he visited for the screening on this particular date, but let's say that he signed it on, let's say on the following day. Let's say consent signed date. So this can be the following day, 2022-0415. In some cases, it can be the same day as well. The screening and both will be completed on the same day as well. For few, it may be on the different dates, correct? So there is no guarantee that it can be the same or it may be different. So don't get confused about this particular one. Can I have a quick confirmation? All of you are comfortable with this particular one? All I'm saying here is going to be, it may not be same that your consent signed date and your screening date cannot be the same. But at the same time, there are scenarios it will be on the same day as well, right? If someone is trying to put an analogy between them, just make sure that there is no one can guarantee that it can be the same day or it can be the following day, correct? It may be same, it may not be the same, right? Few people will get confused here. That's the reason I'm stretching about this particular part. Can I get a quick confirmation? All of you are comfortable with this? Yes or no? Perfect. Any questions here? Right. So now let's proceed with DMDY. DMDY is very crucial. This will be called it as study day of collection. It is a study day of collection. Remember, most important thing, it is a derived variable and it can be positive or negative, but never be a zero. Very important. I'll explain all of this. Okay. And also, most importantly, it is a numeric variable. Definitely, it is not a date, right? It is a study day of collection. Now, what exactly it is? I told you that it is a derived variable, right? So we need to understand the formula. So before we write the formula, we understand that derivation or input variables are input variables are there are two variables. Based on this we are going to calculate this particular one. One is your DMDTC. What is DMDTC? When the collection happened. This is the one, the date and time of collection. And the other one is going to be RFSTDTC, that is your reference study treatment, uh, reference subject start date and time in character format. Based on these two, we are going to calculate this one. Correct? So we already know these two variables. Correct? If you look into this one, we can clearly say here that it is going to be subject reference start date and time in character. This is nothing but when treatment has started. DMDTC is nothing but this is the time when the collection was happened. Correct? So based on these two, we are going to calculate this particular one. Okay. Now, so there are two calculations. Number one, let's say that my DMDY is equal to DMDTC, that is by the time your collection happened, minus your RFSDTTC, the treatment start date, these two plus 1. That is DMDTC minus RFSDTC plus 1. When this is going to happen, if this is going to be the case, the meaning is this is the case when your DMDTC is greater than your RFSDTTC. That is, before treatment itself, we have collected all the information. Then this formula is hold good. Okay, the DMDTC is on. The DMDTC is on. That is, the collection happened. The collection is happened before your treatment started. Then it is correct. Second case, there is a scenario 2. The scenario 2 is going to be DMDY is equal to DMDTC minus, I'll simply say that RFSTDTC. When it is going to happen is, this will happen when your DMDTC is lesser than your RFSTDTC. That is, if your collection date is prior to the treatment date, then go with the first formula. When your collection date is lesser than, that is after your treatment start date, then you are going with the second one. Is that clear? Every one of you? maybe I can also write like this. So here I can say that DMDTC on or before RFSDTTC. In that particular case, we go with the first one, on or before. Okay, if this is going to be like, yeah, DMDTC is after treatment start date. If the collection happened after the treatment start date, then you go with the second formula. If your collection happened before your first treatment, then you can go ahead with the first formula. Clear, everyone? Can I have a quick confirmation? Any questions on this? Let me give you an example so that you can get a clarity on it. It is just the calculation that we are going to do. Just a second. It is just the calculation that we are doing. So to make sure to calculate this particular value. So let me write a simple example so that we can all understand this particular one. Let me take this. Right. So we have subject, sex, and we have, I don't want this particular one. I need only the reference start date. I don't want this particular one. So I'm just removing this. And here reference end date also are not required to me. There is a question from Sanchi. Sanchi, let me explain that. Let me give the example first, then I can go with that. Okay. So then I also have DMDTC, and the DMDTC is 2022-03-20. And let's say that it is going to be 04, today's date is 18. And it is 041. Now what you can understand from here, let's say that this is going to be my calculation. Let's say let's go with the second patient as well. The second patient, the second subject is going to be 222 M 2022 410. It is going to be 418. So there are two people. We started with this particular one. Okay. Now can I say that DMDTC? Now your DMDTC, can I say it is greater than your RFDTC? Correct? Every one of you? Yeah, okay, let me take one more example where both the values are same. 333 F 80. Let's say both of them are same. Your DMDTC as well as your reference start date, both of them are going to be the same. Now, in this particular case, what is your DMDY value? Let's start with the last one. What is your DMDY value? It is on or before this. Your DMDTC is on or before. So what is going to happen? DMDTC minus your RFSDTTC, since both of them are same, this value becomes 0. 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. So can I say that this value is equal to 1? Consider this particular one, 10 minus 18. Am I correct? April 10th minus April 18th plus 1. Is that correct or not? Hey, I'm writing a slightly wrong one here. Apologies for it. There is a small confusion. I made it here. Sorry about it. It's supposed to be like this. If it is before, it is on or after. So when it is on or after, the first one still holds good. Now my DMDTC is before my RSDTPC, correct? That is first the collection happened. After the collection, it happened. So can I need to say, I need to say that my DMDTC minus start date I have to consider 10 minus 18, which is going to be minus 8, correct? And here it is 1 minus 18. So what is 1 minus 18? I can say that minus 17, correct? So most of the time, so what we can understand from here, I can say that most of the times it will be negative. Most of the times the value is negative. Now let me take your question. So in the second derivation, we might get a negative steady day value. Okay, actually it's the first definition in the first itself. Yeah, sorry, in the second itself. Yes, most of the times it is negative, Sanchi. Guys, all of you are able to follow this. A very simple one. All we need to do is you need to remember dm dy value is 90% of the times it is going to be negative only, because before the treatment itself we are going to take the collection, because screening is the first one. Either it will happen on the same day or it will happen on the follow-up day. Correct? How about others? All of you are able to follow this particular one? Can I have a quick confirmation first? It is all about a simple calculation. All we are doing is we are calculating the study day of collection. It is an integer. It can be a positive or a negative value, but it is not going to be zero. Most of the times the value is going to be negative. All we are doing is we are considering two things: collection day and your treatment start date. 99.99% of the cases, your collection will happen before you go with the treatment. So this value will be negative. Is that clear, guys? Any questions? Right? Right. Okay. Let's go with a simple one. Let's go with a very simple task here. The task, I don't call it as a task, but I'm just going to give you a very simple example to calculate this particular, but doesn't require, because anyways I have shown the demonstration here. The same demonstration you can use it. Well, based on your RFSDDTC, based on your DMDTC, you're going to calculate this particular one. Okay. Now, you need to understand one small thing here. That one small thing is going to be how to calculate these formulas. There are a bunch of formulas other than this, because this is not going to be end in the demographics itself. You are also going to use this in your adverse events. You are also going to use this in your tests will be there, right? Test domains there also you are going to use it. For that reason, I want to give you a very simple example here. Let's say since it is a demographics, you are calling it as a dm dy. Okay, suppose if the same is going to be your visiting, your scheduled visit. Okay, in that particular time you are going to call this as, okay, let's say vital signs, vs dy. Suppose if it is going to be the lab test, whenever you're going with the lab test, then in that particular case, you're going to call this as lab dy, laboratory dy, correct? So it is not going to end here. It is going to be there in the other domains as well. So in all the domains, when you want to calculate this particular one, we can represent your study day. Let's consider this as xx dy. You can simply replace the first two x's with your domain name in a simple way, right? So then what is the other thing we have? We are going to have study start date, correct? Study start date. It can be your, in demographics domain, it is going to be a treatment start date. In other domains, it is slightly different, but you can simply call this as a xx sdty. Okay, it is going to be date, just consider as a date, right? Similarly, there is going to be a study end date. So the study end day is going to be simply XX END Y. Right? We're trying to generalize your formula. Right? For an example, if I want to go with the examples now, let's say a few examples we can take. If it is going to be our adverse events, I can simply say that it is going to be AESTDY. All I changed here is I replaced my XX with the AE. Suppose if it is going to be like at the same end also, if you want to consider, I can simply say that instead of STD, I'm going to use the END. Correct? So this is going to be the simple example based on your whatever is going to be your domain. Based on the domain, you can simply change this particular one. Okay. Now, so what is going to be the formula that you can derive now to do this particular one? So what is the formula that you can try here? The formula that I can try here is going to be to calculate xxdy. So here you have it already, right? That is when xxdtc is greater than or equal to your this one, let's say RFSTDTC. In that particular one, what you can say? You can simply say that I'll just call this as XX itself. Then your formula is going to be xxdy is equal to this. We have already done this, correct? When it is happening, it is xxdtc is greater than or equal to your RFSTDTC. If it is the other way, if it is lesser than this, that is nothing but before, I can simply say that take this one, right? This is what we done, right? When xxdtc is nothing but is lesser than your treatment started, we have done this, correct? Now the same thing we are going to apply for remaining things as well. So what is meant by remaining things? What do you mean by remaining things? So what is your study end day? Because we need the study end day, right? So the study end day is equal to the study end day calculation. This also be required, right? Because I mentioned that there is going to be a study end day. So xxendy is equal to xxendtc. So here it is a start date, but here it is going to be end date. xxendtc minus rfstdtc plus 1. When it is, if my formula going to say that if xxdtc is greater than this, I'm going to call this particular one. That is study end day. When I want to calculate the study end day, all I want to do is going to be my, if it is going to be demographics domain, I can simply call this as a RFENDTC minus RF start DTC plus 1. Okay. Suppose if it is the other way, I can simply call that as this. So the first one is going to be is that making sense, guys? All we try to do here is I want to calculate how to calculate my study end day. Suppose if it is going to be, for an example, I'm going with the adverse events. In the adverse events, we are going to have two things, that is AENTCC, AESTDTC. Adverse event start, date and time, adverse event end, date and time. When these two are there, now my calculations are going to be AEDY, that is adverse event days, is equal to how to calculate your adverse event dates. Can someone please help me with this? Can someone please help me to calculate with this particular one? Anyone? Or at least can you help me with how to calculate your adverse end date? Okay, let me calculate this. AE STDY. Similarly, calculate AE ENDY. I want to calculate these two, right? So how to calculate? Can I simply say this particular one? Copy this here, copy this one here. This is end. This is going to be start. Correct? So how to calculate this particular one now? Anyone? Can someone please help me with this? Can I simply replace this with AE? Can I simply replace this with the AE? Here also, can I simply replace this with AE? This is going to be my adverse event date and time of collection minus adverse event your start and treatment start date plus 1. Here also adverse event study end date, treatment end date minus your treatment start date. Can I do like this? If at all it is confusing you, please ignore it. All I want to do is I want to generalize this. When you're feeling difficulty to understand this particular one, you can simply leave this. It is not going to be that important. Clear, everyone? See, we have the adverse study end day. How to calculate the study end day is the question mark here. To calculate the study end day, I'm using this particular method. Everyone, is this understandable? Guys, some confirmation? All right, let me go with the next one. ARM. So ARM stands for what is nothing but ARM here? Can I call this as a ARM is nothing but description of a planned arm. Correct? So how I'm going to get this particular one? ARM is nothing but a treatment, description of your planned arm. This is nothing but a planned treatment name. Correct? So when it comes to this particular one, I can say that it is nothing but planned treatment code. Right? So how we are going to get this particular value? We will populate this value based on randomization sheet. Correct? So we are going to do the randomization sheet, right? Based on the randomization, we are going to populate this particular variable. Correct? So I'm going to have an arm here. I'm going to have the planned arm code here, right? This planned treatment code is nothing but it is a short name for planned arm. Maybe I can give you a simple example for these two together so we can easily understand this. So we have a subject, SUBJ ID, and we have arm. Let's say we have arm code. So I can simply say that the subject is going to be 111, the arm is going to be drug A, and the arm code is going to be DA. Let's say I have patient B, the planned is drug B, and the code is going to be D. It is a short name. Clear, everyone? All right. So what is your actual arm? You planned something, but you are providing a different treatment, the actual treatment, right? Based on the randomization, you have two different groups. right? So you want to give a specific treatment to a specific set of people. You planned something, but when we go actually started our treatment, we are giving the different treatment as per the protocol only, but we are giving the different treatment. So now I can say that it is not a description of a planned arm, it is going to be the actual arm. It is the actual treatment that we have given to the patient. The same thing will go to the actual arm code as well. That is, instead of planned, we simply replace this with the actual. Correct? So the same example goes good for this one as well. So the example here is going to be, so for this particular subject, let's say ACT arm, and it is going to be ACT arm code. So initially for the subject one, we planned drug A, right? But the treatment that we have given is drug B. We start with the drug A, but we have given the drug B. So now we planned drug A, but we provided drug B to him based on the different parameters we have considered there. And finally, we have given the drug B itself. So now I can consider that this is the planned drug, but this is the actual drug that we have given to the patient. Is that understandable, guys? When it comes to this actual arm and all, right, there is something called what happened for the unassigned subjects. First of all, what is called unassigned subjects? This is also important, so we need to understand this. So after screening, we completed the screening. After screening, in randomization stage, just a second. Right. After screening, in the randomization stage, some people will get dropped, right? Those we can call it as unassigned subjects. The people who got dropped after the screening and during the randomization stage, whoever is getting dropped, we call them as the unassigned subjects. When unassigned subject comes to the picture, right? For unassigned subjects, arm value is not assigned. Then what is the ARM code for them? The ARM code for them is going to be not assigned. Similarly, for the same subjects, actual ARM is also going to be not assigned, and actual ARM code is also going to be the same. What is that? ACT, ARM, CD, which is also equal to not assigned. Correct? So if at all is there any unassigned subject, for unassigned subjects we need to ensure that we are going to populate arm code actual and actual arm code as not assigned. So what is called your unassigned subject? The people who got dropped after the screening and especially during the randomization stage, we call them as the unassigned subjects. Clear, everyone? This is all about your DM domain. Whatever we have done so far, this is all about your DM domain, right? So let's do one or two examples on this, and in the next class we are going to start with subject elements. We start with the next domain, subject elements. I don't take it today, but tomorrow I'm going to take this. Maybe not the subject elements, we go with the subject visits. We go with the subject visits tomorrow, right? So from here onwards it won't take time, it will be very quick. Okay, and parallelly I will start with the phone. So in tomorrow class we are going to start with our next domain, which is nothing but the subject visits, and parallelly let's start with our project as well, right? So let's take one project, parallelly we can start work on this particular one. Okay, and one more thing, guys, Do you want me to go with this task 1 to task 4 in the class? You want me to explain this? How do you want to proceed? Because you know the input, you know the output as well. What is the desired output? You write a code, and if you get your output, that is more than sufficient. So if all of you get your code, that is fine. Still, if you are expecting me to do that in the class, yes, I will do. But all I need is a confirmation. You want me to explain that in the class? Perfect. Sure, guys. Yeah. Maybe day after tomorrow or sometime in this week, we'll do that. Okay. Sometime in this week, we do that. Yeah. Any questions from anyone? So today I'm stopping here because anyways we have completed the domain. So instead of starting a new domain today, let's start by tomorrow. Okay. Any of you have any questions, please let me know. I can spend time for explaining your doubts. If not, we can wind up the session.
Murli, I just have one question. The thing which you said that we would be doing a project, so we would be taking DM domain as one of the project, wherein we would be
Correct.
creating the specification or the programming. That is how.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to
Okay.
provide you the raw data sets and everything, and I'll help you with how to proceed, how to continue with the
Okay.
project.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect.